Good day. I'm Zaki Bhika from the Lab Productions, and this morning we have a most phenomenal guest that I don't think needs any introduction whatsoever, Mr. or Dr. Mohammed Keshavjee. Assalamu alaikum.
Maalaikum salam, Zaki.
It's so amazing that you finally reached. We've been communicating for a while now, but it's so amazing that you're here right now and you're going to give us a whole load of information. Are you ready to be in the hot seat, Mr. Keshavjee?
Absolutely.
So, Mr. Keshavjee, you lived in the Asiatic Bazaar for the 17 years of your life, and you went to the Pretoria Indian Boys High School. What were your earliest memories of the Asiatic Bazaar?
Oh, these are enormous. Funny enough that you should ask me that question. You know, today's children have a memory that's much sharper.
Absolutely.
But my earliest memory starts around 1950.
Okay.
But the school memory, I remember 6th of April 1952, there was a major manifestation, or what you call a major protest against the unjust laws.
Okay.
And I remember the school was closed on that day.
All
And they
right.
took us from the Pretoria Indian Boys School to the colored school. And I was wondering, why are they moving my school like this?
Right.
And I remember smelling the dip in the washrooms.
Okay.
And then I was wondering that when we came home, we were seeing the newspapers with the thumbs up. Africans putting their thumbs up, and
Okay.
everybody was saying freedom.
Yes.
And that was my earliest memory. I said, on the one hand, there was Van Riebeck's Day, we were celebrating.
Yes.
And then the school is closed, and everybody is not saying what's happening.
Yes.
And that was my memory of the early days. But it was a time when I remember jacarandas in the school. I remember the teachers. I had a problem. I didn't want to go to school. I used to dodge school. I used to get beaten up for that.
Okay.
But those were my early memories. But today, alhamdulillah, when I look back, those are very lovely days.
Okay, Mr. Keshavjee, where about exactly? So I did a lot of interviews about the Marabastad pioneers. Where exactly were you living?
Oh, lovely. There was the Royal Bioscope
Right,
on Grand Street.
right.
Today, it's an empty piece of land.
Okay,
All right? Behind the Royal Bioscope, there was a stone house,
right,
and there's a jacaranda tree. It's
Okay.
still there.
right.
And if you go there tomorrow, you will see the outline of my parents' room.
Really?
I was born in that room. The outline is still there.
Okay, wow, that's absolutely very, very vivid memories. That's so awesome. The Ismailis were pioneers in the cinemas. I'm not going to say cinemas today. I'm going to say bioscopes. I think the Orient, the Empire. What was the third?
And the Royal Bioscope.
The Royal. That's it. What role did the cinemas play in the Marabastad? And then leading to that, it was sold to the Chetty brothers, I believe. So if you can evaluate on that as well.
Zaki, maybe I should elaborate that the pioneers were the Kanamia community.
All right.
It was Sheikh Ahmed who started the first cinema called Bombay Star Bioscope. It was in the corner of Jerusalem and Boom Street, opposite the Jamaat Khana.
All right.
All right?
Okay.
Opposite
okay,
the
I'm
Jamaat Khana.
picturing that now.
Sheikh Ahmed started that bioscope with a person called, I think it was Ismail Wali, the father of Muhammad Wali, who was known as Uncle Trolley.
Okay.
Uncle Trolley's father and Sheikh Ahmed, who was Baimia, the butcher's brother.
Okay.
All right?
So the whole house
yes,
in the...
yeah, they were the founders, and that was the Bombay Star Bioscope. It was the biggest bioscope there.
Okay.
That's at corner of Jerusalem and Boom Street.
Boom Street, right? Okay.
The Ismailis came on the scene in 1927 when the Royal Bioscope was built.
Okay.
The Ismailis built that. It was
All right.
K.K. Khoja's father, a chap
Right.
called Khoja,
Right.
and the Keshavjees, the Manji Keshavjees. That's my father's brothers.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
They built the Royal, and it was called the Royal Kinema, Kinema.
Okay.
That was
Kinema, all right.
1927.
27, right?
Then the second cinema that started was Empire Cinema, which is in Boom Street, Empire Bioscope.
Okay.
That was started also by Sheikh Ahmed and Ismail Wali.
Okay.
But they got into financial difficulties, So they went to borrow some money from Suleiman Ismail Jalalpur. Jalalpur was a very pioneering people
Also.
from Bruderstorm.
Bruderstorm.
All
Okay.
right?
All right.
Suleiman Bhai lent them money. They got into a dispute. They couldn't pay back, and they were fighting among themselves.
Okay.
So he left the bioscope,
Right.
and that's where my uncle Habib Keshavjee came in.
Okay.
And he took over the bioscope. He was showing 3 days a week. He was showing films,
Yes.
and 2 days they were having dances there.
Yes,
It was
I-
a dance hall and a film hall. And that's the cafe that my mother bought when we were 12 children that she was trying to bring up.
All
So I
right.
was brought up in the cafe. I've even washed the floor of that cafe myself.
In the bioscope.
In the
Okay.
bioscope. If you go there today, it's no longer a bioscope. It's a
Yes.
big shopping center. But I can even outline which floor I had washed as a kid. And that's where I remember Ismail Muhammad coming on a Wednesday or Thursday afternoon. He'd come alone to the cinema with his Wits University blazer.
Yes.
And I used to serve him. He'd buy a chocolate and a cold drink.
Okay.
And I looked at him and I said, he's a lawyer. He's becoming a lawyer. I want to be like him. So I just thought that, my God, that was the Ismail everybody was talking about. What a very quiet man.
Yes.
Didn't say much. Very handsome. Very good looking.
Yes.
And he used to come with a blue and yellow Wits blazer.
Okay.
I said, oh my God, one day I want to be in that blazer.
So your memories are very vivid. Just for the audience, I just want to know, Auntie Roshan is sitting here right now. Auntie Roshan, my favorite auntie, and Doctor is actually chatting to her rather than me. I'm so honored that he's all this reminiscence is seeing her, and it's all coming back to him. So going from there, Doc.
Yeah, quickly, what did the cinemas do?
Yes.
The cinemas were not there only for films.
Yes.
The cinemas in Marabastad did what the film industry did for the Indians in India. It was a way where we could escape.
Yes.
Life was so difficult that anybody who could go to the cinema could dream. They could look at America. They could look at big houses we couldn't live in.
Yes.
They could see beautiful women and men to say, oh my God, Tony Curtis, Rock Hudson, Sid Charisse, people like Elizabeth Taylor,
Yes.
Vivian Lee. Could we ever dream of ever becoming that? So it was our dream box, number one.
Right.
Number two, the cinemas or the bioscopes were where school ceremonies took place. On school concerts took place
Okay.
there. Our kids played Shakespeare. The
All right.
Docrat kids were playing Shakespeare. We had people like Mohammed Docrat. We had people like Mariam Burgess, who was a teacher. They used to have elocution contests.
Okay.
Not only for Indians,
Yes.
but also there were dances once a week where the girls and the boys from Marabastad used to dance at the Orient Cinema. They took all the seats out and they would do ballroom dancing.
Okay.
Then also people like Dr. Dadu, when he came to Marabastad, would speak at the cinemas. There were political meetings that took place there.
Okay.
Then there was my auntie Sakina Khoja, who in 1934
Yes.
had a meeting in the Royal Bioscope where the Chetty brothers' mother
Yes.
and Uncle Subu's mother,
Yes.
they came and they participated.
Okay.
So the cinema was more than the box of dreams.
Yes.
It was the places where people came for social purpose, for educational concerts, for school prize giving days.
Yes.
And two interesting things.
Yes.
Two very leading global figures in the entertainment industry came there in 1947-48. Mariam Makeba used to come and sing there on Friday evenings, and my uncle Habib used to give 100 shillings for singing.
Wow,
That's 1947-48.
that is now something really awesome. What is, if you can, on the tip of your tongue, what can you tell me is her favorite or the world's favorite song of Mariam Makeba?
Of course, the click song.
Yes.
Anybody in the world will know the click song. Now, I was amazed to note that Mariam Makeba was the girl who was called to sing in the presence of the then Princess Margaret and Princess Elizabeth when they came to South Africa.
Yes.
And she used to sing on the stage of Marabastad in Empire Bioscope with the Manhattan Brothers.
Yes.
And in 1951,
Okay.
Sidney Poitier, who acted in Cry the Beloved Country,
Yes.
came to Marabastad.
Really?
And he went to Jerusalem Street where M.M. Joshi was.
Okay.
Next to there, that place is still there today, was the house of Ali Dr Keshavjee, and he had a club at the back called the Kasbah Club. And Sidney Poitier came there,
Okay.
and he came to Empire Bioscope, and he got on the stage.
Okay, so Marabastad had all the celebrities.
Oh, absolutely. And Sidney Poitier remembered that.
Yes.
He remembered that when I met him in 1973 in Nairobi, when he was doing the Wilby conspiracy. They were filming in the High Court of Kenya, and I was a lawyer when I went there.
Yes.
They stopped me. They said, you can't go in because they're filming.
Yes, yes.
So the registrar came in and said, you can't stop this man. He's a lawyer. So he brought me in.
Okay.
And he said, Sydney, this is Dr Keshavjee from South Africa. And I said, Mr. Poitier, our family remembers you coming to Marabastad. And he really smiled. He laughed. He said,
Oh,
of course,
what?
I remember that.
So you've touched shoulders with a whole lot of celebrities. Going on further, Mr. Keshavjee, tell me about the Aga Khan Nursery School. You were there with lots of people, Judge Jody Collipin, Mr. Harun Nur Mohammed, and one of the South Africa ambassadors, Sue Singh. So can you elaborate or evaluate on that subject?
Yes. In fact, I wasn't there at the same time,
Okay.
I was much older.
Yes.
I was there from 1950. No, I think I may have joined in 49, 1950. So I was there for about 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
Now, it's remarkable and interesting that nursery school produced children who went out in the world and also in this country. I mean, Judge Collipin came many years later. He's a product of the Aga Khan Nursery School. Sue Singh became the first, I think she was among the first few non-white ambassadors. And she was from also Marabastad,
Yes.
just opposite the Singh House in 5th Street, just near the Royal Bioscope.
Okay.
Now, this particular nursery school has a very interesting history. On the 9th of August 1945, His Highness the Aga Khan III, the Imam of the Ismaili Muslims, came on a visit to South Africa. And that night, there was a banquet at the City Hall where General Smuts was present. And Jan Hofmeyer, the Deputy Premier, was present.
Okay.
But during the daytime, when he met the Ismaili community in Marabastad, he asked, what are your needs? And the community said to the Imam, they said, our Imam, we need a school for our children, for our young children, for the whole area. And the Imam said, do you have a place where you want to have the school?
Okay.
They said, behind the Jamaat Khana is a little area, and we think we could start it there.
Okay.
So he said, who owns that piece behind the area? They said, it's the Manji Keshavjee family. That's our part of the Keshavjee family. So the person who was in charge of that whole organization was Habib Keshavjee. And he came to my uncle Ghulam Keshavjee. And he said, look, the Imam has said that, why don't you have a school there? But the land was very little. So my father's brothers and their sisters got together, and they said, we'll buy the land little behind it.
Okay.
It was going to cost £1,600. And there were 4 brothers and 4 sisters.
All right.
Then within a few minutes, they said, if the Imam has said that, no question. If it's for education, definitely.
question,
So each one of them gave £200 each. And by the evening, the letter was ready. They said, £1,600 we are giving.
Okay.
And they started that nursery school on a wing and a prayer. There was nothing there. They got some carpenters. They put up the whole structure. And my uncle Habib went to Cape Town in those days because there was a white nursery school teacher called Miss Glennie Tomlinson.
Okay.
And he told their parents, please send your daughter to work in our school in an Indian area in Marabastad on the eve of apartheid. And they said, we don't know you. And he said, send your daughter to us. She will work with us. We will treat her as our own daughter.
Yes.
And that Miss Glennie became the white governess of that school.
Wow.
And then he went to all the other Indians in Marabastad and Prince Street. H.S. Ibrahim, M.H. Jusab, the Singhs, Makhulu Hopan, the Makhulu Skop or somebody, the Chinese. So there were Chinese, There were other Muslims, there were Ismaili Muslims, there were Christians, the Chiba boys, they were there. And they started a school with early childhood education, a concept that was not known then, which said children must get nourishing food,
Yes.
enough sleep, and have a child-centered education program. That started in Marabastad in 1946. Today, it's a cornerstone of the Aga Khan Education Services Global Network. They are the leaders in the world in that field.
Wow.
And Marabastad was one of the schools of the Aga Khan Network in the 1940s that started.
And that's when it started.
And that's where you have all these people over the years became
Coming up.
students.
As we chatted during the weeks, I believe that Grand and 6th Street was an iconic spot. Tell me about that. You have lots of fun memories about that, Doctor.
Yes, that's in fact, I was just talking to Dr. Murthy Subbu yesterday.
Yes.
It's very fascinating, Marabastad has got these little pockets of historical interest.
Yes.
There was a restaurant, and I'll come to the Grand and 6th Street in a moment. I just want to give you a preamble to it.
Okay.
There was a restaurant called Pema's restaurant. There was a
Right.
chap called Naran Pema, shortish chap with curly hair, and he was always polishing the utensils of his restaurant. It was so impeccable that we were afraid to go to Pema's restaurant. It was so good, so clean, and he used to sell 2 ice creams, a banana ice cream
Right.
and a chocolate ice cream.
Okay.
It was in a stick with a foil around it.
All
It was
right.
about 4 pence or 3 pence.
Okay.
And he used to make the best milkshakes.
Right.
Now, interestingly enough, that many of the young people used to meet at Pema's with 2 people who used to inspire them. One was Ismail Muhammad, and the
Right.
other one was Ramtullah Dr Keshavjee. Ramtullah had just come from England,
Yes.
where he was studying, and
Okay.
Ismail Muhammad was at Wits, or going to Wits.
All right.
He was not at Wits yet.
Okay.
And these 2 people used to inspire the young people, said, you can become something. Don't worry about this inhuman laws.
Yes.
We have to really fight for our own rights. But they did it through intellectual discussions.
Yes.
Now that's Pema's. Let me take you now to Grand Street and 5th Street, which is my favorite spot in
Okay.
Marabastad for 3 or 4 reasons.
Right.
Reason number 1, in 1914, when Mohandas Karimchand Gandhi, and I don't mean disrespectfully because he was not the Mahatma yet,
yes.
but who we call today Mahatma Gandhi,
Yes.
used to come there to take a ride to go to the Union buildings to see General Smuts.
Okay.
That corner shop where Auntie Zaytun used to sell Cook Sisters belonged to Zaki Keshavjee in 1902, 1903.
Okay.
And by 1914, Mahatma Gandhi used to come there to hail a ride to go to the Union buildings because Gandhi had given up everything
Yes,
material.
yes.
And sometimes he didn't have even money to go for the trains.
Yes. Okay.
Opposite that house was the Subbu house.
Okay.
And about 36 years later, another freedom fighter used to come to that corner, and that was Nelson Mandela. And in the house, who did he meet? He met Zaki Keshavjee's grandson, Ramtullah.
Right.
He met Uncle Govin,
Right.
Uncle Naran,
Right.
Uncle Subbu,
Okay.
Mrs. Pillai,
Right.
and sometimes Dr. Dadu used to be there, and sometimes Brahm Fisher used to come there.
Wow.
So that's 36 years later on this side of the road.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
Go behind the road, you got the Mariamman temple.
Right.
That was the Tamil community's center, in
Yes.
fact. When you stand in front of Subbu's house and look across the road, you will see, in those days, there was a place called Soda Brothers.
Okay.
And Mr. and Mrs. Soda were part of the marches with Mahatma Gandhi and Kasturba in those days. They had gone to prison.
So,
Now I give you 2 more spins to it.
okay.
In that corner shop in 1929, a man, an Ismaili from Zanzibar, came to Marabastad. There was no hotel, so he stayed with Zaki Keshavjee, and he happens to be who he became. His son went to England to study, married a white lady, a Caucasian lady,
Yes.
and they had a son called Ben Kingsley, who played the role of Gandhi in Admiral
Yes,
film.
yes.
All that happened around that corner.
Oh my
Over
gosh.
100 years.
Okay. That is a real spin to Marabastad. I'm going to end here. Stay tuned for part 2 coming up shortly. And if you watch this video, we'll show you the letter that was written specially to Dr. Keshavjee by Sydney Poitier. But please, audience or listeners, viewers, stay tuned for part 2.